The present passage we're going to discuss is about the United States intervention in World War II. All right, a moderate to difficult passage. The passage you had to make sure that you read the answers options carefully and mark. Then it would be easy. But if this is the last of the passages you're doing, you're in a hurry to finish parajumbles and summary coming after that, then you're likely to make a lot of mistakes here. So be careful. When a passage has a lot of facts and a lot of words, terms, this, not this, you have to have a clear idea what's the author saying. Understand the main point properly. Second, when there are direct questions, do go back to the part of the passage from which the question has been asked and make sure that the answer option that you think is right is actually right or not. So you would be spending some extra time for each of the options. All right. Why did the United States? So the entire passage is talking about the Second World War and wars in general. The author says, why did the United States intervene in the Second World War? This question is rarely asked because the answer is obvious. Pearl Harbor, US was attacked first. To most Americans, there's a term he has used. World War II was a war of necessity. All right. Now, this is another term. He says wars can be wars of necessity or wars of choice. How does he define a war of choice? War of choice is something like Vietnam and the First World War. What is the first Gulf War? The American invasion of when Iraq invaded Kuwait, America started the first Gulf War. Because wars of choice are fought for reasons of principles, ideology, geopolitics, sometimes pure humanitarianism. So this is a war of choice. Remember, here the passage, you have to understand two terms. What's a war of necessity and what's a war of choice? War of choice involves your principles, your ideals, sometimes humanitarianism. On the other hand, war of necessity is a life or death struggle where the safety and security of a homeland, your nation's safety and security is at stake. And World War II, people called it a war of necessity. It is a quintessential war of necessity. That is why US joined World War II. Gulf War and the first Gulf War and Vietnam, those were wars of choice. They involved principles, ideals. They chose to get into the war. In the second one, it was necessary for you to get into the war to survive. Got it? All right. Next one. If World War II is remembered as the good war, the idea that it was necessary is a big part of the reason why. How do people remember World War II? As a good war. And according to the author, it was called a good war because it was necessary. All right? Because the enemies are wicked, Americans were attacked first, Japan attacked, right? Pearl Harbor started it. They had no choice but to fight. The perception of World War II has had a paradoxical effect on the broader American foreign policy debate. On the one hand, people who are anti-interventionist, means people who are against war, that you should not intervene, there should be no intervention on your part. They rightly perceive that the war's reputation as necessary and therefore good has encouraged America to believe that other wars are necessary and therefore good. People who are against war, who are against interventionism of any kind, are saying that the moment you say if it is necessary, it's a good war, it is encouraging this perception that any war that is necessary and therefore it is good. So a lot of other wars are being included in this necessary and therefore good category. And then he gives a line of wars which people have called good because of that reason. On the other hand, anti-interventionists are not alone in believing that even if World War II was necessary, the circumstances were unique and therefore irrelevant to subsequent foreign policy decision. From this sentence, what are you getting? That anti-interventionists also believe World War II is necessary. But this idea that it's necessary, therefore good, has made people justify other wars as necessary and good. That's what. No. All agree that World War II was necessary and therefore good. He says that World War II was unique, different. There's not going to be another Hitler. There's not going to be another situation where, there'd be a direct attack on the United States like the kind that Japan did. World War II is very different from other wars. But the other wars, World War II was the only good foreign war that United States has ever fought. All other wars, according to the author, were not. All right, but what if even America's intervention in World War II was not necessary, as most Americans would define the term? So, most Americans would say World War II was necessary. But what if it wasn't necessary? The author is playing the devil's advocate. What if the situation is that it was not necessary? Then he is coming to the answer. What if a choice that America made based on the calculations not different from other wars, according to the author, World War II could also have been a war of choice, a choice that Americans made based on a lot of things that happened. Those many Americans who opposed American involvement in Europe and Asia in the 30s and 40s did not believe that war was necessary. So there were many Americans who did not believe World War II was necessary. In 1930s and 40s, they did not support America and they did not believe that the war was necessary. They knew about the risk posed by Hitler and the Japanese Empire. They knew about the attack on France, but they still thought that the war was not necessary. All right. They not only believed, but they also predicted that after England falls, France has fallen. If England falls, then America will be left with no allies. America will have not a single ally in the European theatre. All right, this is the gist of the passage. Which one of the following statements, if true, could be an accurate inference of the second paragraph of the passage? Now, lot of cat questions ask you which is an inference from the last paragraph, second paragraph. Key to that is go to the second paragraph. Either you can look at the options and go, or go to the second paragraph. Let's just look at the second paragraph quickly before we decide which one can be a seen as a proper conclusion of the second paragraph. This is the first paragraph. We are not looking at this. This is first paragraph gave us the difference between war of choice and war of necessity. Second one. If World War II is remembered as the good war, the idea of that it was necessary is a big reason why. It was considered a good war because it was also necessary. First point, because American enemies, and what were the reasons? These are the reasons. The enemies were wicked, aggressive. America had no choice but to join the war because it was attacked first. And this perception that World War II was necessary, therefore good, has had an effect on subsequent wars, subsequent foreign policy. On the one hand, anti-interventionists say that the war's reputation as necessary and therefore good has given rise to many other cases where a war is justified as necessary and therefore good. Got it? And he has given a lot of examples where people have justified every war as necessary and therefore good. That's the second paragraph. So necessary, therefore good, people using that perception to justify all other wars as necessary and good. This is our conclusion of the second paragraph. Let's see. The definition of a necessary war is still ambiguous, as both the interventionists and non-interventionists differ on its exact meaning. Number one, the definition of war of choice, necessary war, is not given in the second paragraph. Second, there is a clear definition what is a war of choice and what's a necessary war. So it is not ambiguous. So A is incorrect. Even according to first paragraph, it's incorrect. And second thing is it's not part of the second paragraph. Victory in World War II led to America's adoption of an aggressive and warlike foreign policy. It affected America's foreign policy. Correct. But whether it made it aggressive and therefore warlike, no. We don't know. And that is again not given in the second paragraph. World War II is widely accepted as being the only good and necessary war that has been accepted as a a good and necessary war and has given rise to a paradoxical effect of other wars being called paradoxical and good. Correct? So C is the correct answer. All right.